So I got an email from Nick Beardy that said, hey, check out this article. And it's a safe haven, how Dungeons and Dragons is slaying social anxiety. I think there's something, I think he mentioned there's something in here that's gonna make me angry, which is probably true, but let's read through. The world's most successful role-playing game could provide a home amid the chaos for those struggling with post-lockdown angst. As pandemic restrictions lift across Australia and more face-to-face activities resume, last I checked, Australia's in a fucking civil war, but sure, Guardian, let's just go with that. Socializing can be a source of profound anxiety for many people, but what if, when you meet up with others, you don't have to be yourself? If decision-making is done through a character you create and consequences determined by a roll of dice. It's a strange sentence. Since its inception in the mid-1970s, the tabletop role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons has brought together a far more diverse array of players than its stereotypes suggest. Earlier this year, the game's publisher, Wizards of the Coast, released a report showing that of its estimated 50 million players, 54% were younger than 30 and 40% identified as female. What it didn't reveal was the rise and visibility of queer and neurodiverse players. It has always been a safe haven for folks who might not feel at home elsewhere, says the game's principal rules designer Jeremy Crawford. D&D is about a group of people with wildly different paths coming together to create an intentional family and overcome adversity. A group of players are stronger because of their differences from each other. You don't want 4 fighters, you want a cleric, a fighter, a rogue, and a wizard. You aren't playing fun parties, sir. That's easy mode. Easy mode's a cleric and a fighter. No, if you go all 4 fighters, you gotta think outside the box. In other words, you want a group that is powerful because of its diversity. Here you fucking go. To play, a storyteller known in the game as the Dungeon Master or DM takes a group of players through an adventure set in an imaginary world. It is their role to bring that world to life around the players, describe or enact the characters or creatures they meet, and to roll the dice that decide the outcomes of the party's decisions. Games can involve more than a dozen players. Who the fuck is running a dozen-player game? Jesus. Ugh. But most feature 4 to 6 players who gather around a table with books, dice, pencil, and paper. More like phone apps and tablets, but whatever. Some may join via Zoom. Sometimes miniatures, figurines, and maps can be used to illustrate the adventure. What is this, fucking baby's first guide to D&D? For people such as Shadia Hancock, the founder of the advocacy group Autism Actually, and Dungeon Master to a group of young neurodiverse players, the therapeutic potential of the game has always been clear. It's about creating a sense of community, Hancock says. I work out the players' expectations at the beginning of a game. Some really get into creating their characters, some are more interested in finding items and exploring the world, others are really interested in how the characters met. We all have a mutual love of gaming, but we all want something different from the session. Some characteristics expressed by some of Hancock's players: social anxiety, increased empathy, and difficulty adapting to change. Feeling overwhelmed in noisy environments have become familiar to many Australians in the wake of lockdowns. Studies cited by the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare found reported levels of social anxiety increased over the past 2 years among all age groups, with young neurodiverse Australians even more likely to have experienced a decline in well-being. Well, no shit. You lock people away for 2 fucking years, the fuck do you think is going to happen? While other people are excited about going out, I am filled with dread, Hancock tells me. With COVID, we autistic communities had all these sudden changes, often with short notice, and there was this need to constantly adapt to new rules. Not knowing what is coming up is really anxiety-inducing. During the pandemic, that became a shared experience. That's also D&D. I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but D&D is also that shit. Short notice changes, adapt new rules. Not knowing what's coming up is really, that's whatever. While there's no shortage of anecdotes about how D&D has transformed the lives of neurodiverse players and their families, published studies are few and small in scope. Before starting, the players might be more withdrawn and not used to larger social situations, says Hancock, but once they create their character and get used to the structure of the game, they become more outgoing. It fosters friendships that in unstructured settings wouldn't flow as well. Having that activity-based format and collaborative approach gives players support to try new things. When I was a kid, they call these kids shy. Neurodiverse, they're shy. They don't get out much. Like, no shit, the small social gatherings helping them because they don't do that. This can go in the gun community, in the military community, D&D community, fantasy wargaming. They're just shy. They don't get out much. I hate how people slap autistic and neurodivergent on fucking everything nowadays. The kid's just shy. They're young. God, and for the last 2 years, I know nothing but fear and fucking just hiding at home. The fuck you think's gonna happen? Overcoming fear of failure is one of the game's most notable therapeutic aspects. Throughout the game, the player or DM will roll a die to decide the outcome of a decision. Will you notice the secret door in the castle wall? Can you determine the history of an ancient book? Are you able to charm a unicorn? While failure is not avoided, it's potentially instructive and often an excuse for humor in the release of tension. So is life. God, it's just... what kind of adults are these kids around? Like... it's just... remain calm, it's only a D&D article. I think the game is really powerful, says Crawford. It allows players to be daring in ways that are hard in their daily lives. Yeah, because you can't fucking fight dragons in real life, Crawford. Knowing that if things go spectacularly wrong, we would laugh about it. That is not an analog to real life. Don't do that. American game designer Amanda Hammond has used teenage life as an inspiration for a forthcoming D&D book in adventure setting, Strixhaven, the fucking college one. Strixhaven is a magically enhanced university where players arrive as students, join colleges, form and handle relationships, and deal with sinister forces. The book's artwork, some of which is drawn from the trading card game Magic the Gathering, draws students and faculty from across the world and from other realms in the multiverse. As D&D has grown, the creators have realized this game is for everybody. The game's always been for everybody. I don't know what kind of stigma y'all stuck yourselves with. The D&D's always been for everybody. I don't know why the fuck is this suddenly revelation. It's always been for fucking everybody. It's not like there's been a fucking D&D gate where only like white dudes can play. It's always been for everybody. God. There's lots and lots of folks who are playing. We want everybody to feel that they're welcome and come to the table. I get questions like, what is it like now that D&D is more diverse? It's always been diverse, but it always has been. Yeah, see? You might not necessarily have seen it because the people who are ranking things didn't always think, hey, there's a whole wide world of folks out there. For a host of reasons, many players prefer playing D&D on online platforms because of fucking scheduling, such as Zoom, Discord, or Roll20. Others have a hybrid arrangement of in-person and remote players. As technology evolves, D&D continues to grow in popularity with a great number of people finding appeal in moving through conversations and encounters at a more manageable pace and replacing the ambiguity of real-world interactions with the shared adventures of the imagination. I don't know why it's some kind of fucking revelation that now D&D is for everybody. It's always been for everybody. It's always been a thing. Everyone's played this. Females, males, blacks, whites, whatever colors, they've all played D&D. This isn't some kind of new fucking mind-blowing experience. It's always been a fucking thing. And why do they feel the need to slap the term neurodivergent on everybody? Some kids are just fucking shy. And yeah, that's the thing. D&D's always been a great way to make friends in the same shit as you. But it's just... I don't get the point of this article. A safe haven, how Dungeons & Dragons is slaying social anxiety. I know a lot of kids who play D&D who still have fucking social anxiety because it was the 90s or early 2000s. It should ignore all this shit and say, hey, D&D is now more, fucking welcomed. Because for a while, D&D was not welcomed. Only sweaty nerds played Dungeons & Dragons. It's simply now more established in common culture. It's not frowned upon anymore. Literally now everyone plays it. I don't get the point of this fucking article. Slaying social anxiety? No. Dungeons & Dragons used to be for people who had who couldn't be with everyone else, and had to play a game with other people. And I think I'm not sure. COVID sure did help out D&D, sure, because no one had anything else better to fucking do. But it's just, I don't get why this article even fucking exists. This is a nothing article. This is something we all of us already fucking knew. What they should write about is how fucking Dungeons and Dragons in lockdown as my universe contracts, the game world expands, whole worlds. It's cool now. Why Dungeons and Dragons is casting its spell again? Let's see this one. Fuck me. Who are these people? Oh, yeah. Good lord. Not long ago, my sons, like many of the preteens, were obsessed with Fortnite. It was all they played, all they talked about, all they spent their pocket money on. But one rainy afternoon this summer, my youngest took out the D&D starter kit we'd bought him for Christmas and began to study it. Some friends came around and they played for hours. Since then, they haven't really stopped. Let's see here. Why now? We live in an era of complex fantasy video games such as The Witcher and Elder Scrolls that offer rich, incredibly detailed worlds to explore. In comparison, D&D still uses paper pencils, dice, and imagination. Imagination. Use your fucking words. Now it's in its 5th iteration. It offers modernized and simplified rules, but the basic idea remains the same. A group of people sit around a table and pretend to be warriors, mages, and elves, embarking on imagined quests and deciding the outcome of battles and other climatic events through rolls of dice. One player is the dungeon master, yada yada yada. It is nerdy, quaint, and there's some maths involved. What's going on? The obvious explanation is Stranger Things. The immensely popular Netflix series, which has attracted a huge teen audience, features Dungeons & Dragons as a key element. Not only do the boys in Hawkins play the game, they also use it to understand and contextualize a bizarre phenomenon taking place in their small town. When a dimensional tear opens, they name the emerging creatures after D&D monsters. Later, Eleven flips their game board over to explain the Upside Down, with Dustin comparing it to the Veil of Shadows, a craggy and desolate tomb-strewn area of the D&D world, the Forgotten Realms. What is this? The human contact element of D&D is also vital. In an era when much of our socializing is medicated through phone screens and modern social media, role-playing is one thing that gets... No, it doesn't, because people still play with a fucking computer. The human contact has been gone for 2 years because of the fucking lockdowns. Even then, people still play D&D and other war games in person. I play war games every fucking weekend on Saturdays. My only day off is on Saturday. Socialize meeting through phone screens and social media. No, it's not. People meet up with friends all the fucking time. I don't. Is this like a Yankee thing in like big cities where this fucking thing happens? I mean, even then, people meet all the fucking time. I don't get it. With digital games, you can play co-op, but it doesn't quite have the connection of real people at a table. This is the thing that humans have always done, gathering around a campfire, telling stories, interacting. For many players, D&D is an event. One person will say, oh, I'll bring some casserole, another brings music as a social occasion. Maganillo says that in his industry, D&D is a gaining cult appeal. It's always had cult appeal. He now runs a D&D group from his home in Beverly Hills for Hollywood producers and directors. Game of Thrones TV series co-creators David Benioff and DB Weiss are among his regular players. D&D also chimes with the performative element of platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Role-playing as a bored or charming thief gives you a chance to create a character to show off to friends. Yeah. Jane Douglas has called the improv theater for nerds. It's really exciting for nerds. Dude, I played this stuff with my fucking football buddies. I played this shit in the military with fucking engineers, military police, special forces, artillery, Cav Scouts. We all play. It's not just... As the game's popularity grows, one major challenge has been to overcome stereotypes. Not just the assumption that the game's arcane and complicated, but also that's just for young white men. Wizards of the Coast says they are addressing this by employing a more diverse roster of artists and writers and adding racially diverse and LGBTQ characters. into its official campaign books, as well as working with streamers and influencers from outside the perceived target audience. Let me guess. It's all white people, right? This is all white. Well, this is all the white man's fault. This is what this fucking shit is. I've known more black D&D players than I have white D&D players. I know there are Latinos who fucking love this shit. They always play bards. Like,
this game is only for little white nerds. Little white nerds. Little white straight nerds.
Tanya DePass from the Rivals of Waterdeep stream, which features a cast of POC players, oh, is that above us here? Okay. Recognizes these efforts, but says more needs to be done, both in the game and the team behind it. I'm really glad to see the changes that have come with the 5th edition, but there are not a lot of people of color working at the... because we don't see many brown faces on official streams. We need more staff, not just freelancers working for WOTC. I do feel seen, yes. The inclusion... Could it be that they don't want to fucking work there? Good lord. Are they like trying to headhunt fucking brown people to work at WOTC? I mean, if they want to work there, they'll apply. And if their merit meets, they'll be hired. I don't get... Ugh. This feels important because of my own experience. D&D can be more than just a pastime. My oldest son is on the autism spectrum and has difficulties with vocabulary and communication. He has responded to the openness of humor of systems within a game. To our immense surprise, he's even started writing his own campaigns, boosting his confidence and comprehension. Many other players have mentioned the game's mental health benefits. I can't make... not my fucking games. I can't make claims about therapeutic qualities, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had a beneficial qualities for some. It pulls off the nice trick of being highly sociable and escapes at the same time. Both those things feel restorative, at least to me, restorative. And I can imagine other people getting the same benefit. What is this bullshit? Bill Benham, who administrates the D&D Adventures League, agrees. Previously an army medic, Benham would set up D&D games with other soldiers while stationed in Tikrit, Iraq, and credits the game with helping him come to terms with the experience on active duty. I have PTSD, and I've been to counseling at the Department of Veterans Affairs, but I've also found work with other vets that D&D is an effective tool for addressing these issues because you're able to engage with something that's potentially frightening or uncomfortable in an environment where you're safe. You're with friends and you're engaging in an abstract way. By processing these emotions in the game world, you're better able to process them in the real world. Ugh, not in the games I had. those dudes were fucking like all about fucking blood and gore. I guess it all pretends to each person, but that's with fucking everything. The rundown, leaky summer house in our garden is now effectively a D&D dungeon for our sons and their friends who bring their own campaign books and dice, staying there for hours without a screen in sight. Though there are apps that help you create your characters or manage your dice rolls. At the same time, many of my games industry colleagues in their 20s and beyond are forming groups. Joe Manganiello told me, only half joking, that he thinks the game will replace a traditional poker night as a venue for American adults to socialize. D&D artist Suzanne Hilmig expressed it to me very simply. Being called a geek isn't bad anymore. It's cool now. No, it's not. It's not cool. It's accepted. There aren't geeks anymore because now it's all mainstream. As adults, we tend to leave make-believe behind. I think that's a shame. Video games can only partially make up for the loss of narrative exploration and fantasy in our lives. Role-playing games answer to an atavistic human need for socio-ritual play and storytelling. They break down barriers within us and between us. Mark Holmes from High Roller sums it up nicely. Being an awkward teen who was into theater and anime, playing D&D allowed me to explore different personalities and interests. It lets you know which of your friends will try to befriend everyone and who will axe a guy in the face without asking any questions. It tells you who you are. It's not really that being a geek is cool or being nerdy is cool. It's just more fucking acceptable. I hate fucking articles like these because it's just like back when I was a kid, these quote unquote autistic spectrum kids were just like shy or introverted, and D&D helped you, pull out of that hole. No more nerds. How Dungeons and Dragons finally became cool. It's It's not that. It's the fact that all these A-listers like Critical Role and all that brought D&D to the masses and showed it what it truly was. Everyone else wouldn't play it until they heard what it was. It's not no more nerds. It's not that nothing being geeky is cool. It's that most folks understand what D&D is, and it's different. Dungeons and Dragons or the EvErYbOdY TTRPG or Pathfinders or any other game out there like this system works on the basis that you have nothing in front of you but dice in a character sheet. It takes your imagination. It's helping people always forget that shit. It's helping you think outside the norm. It's helping you use your imagination to create a world and interact with other imaginations and other profiles. And it's right now they're saying like there's no like you can have any like there. It's frustrating. It really is. Like people just being the way they are, like this is simply a game for nerdy white men or nerdy white boys. And it's just like it's always been a game for everybody. Fucking the creators of D&D didn't say for whites only on the fucking game. It's for everybody. The issue was that the biggest issue is that there were racial stigmatisms in their own racial groups that kept them from playing D&D. For instance, I had a black friend. I won't say his name because he probably listens to this fucking YouTube. His dad beat the shit out of him for playing D&D. You wanna know why? His dad said black folks don't play D&D, and beat the absolute fucking shit out of him for going to school after hours at a club and playing D&D. When his dad found out, he beat him. It's not an issue that this is a game only for white people. This is a game where literally some racial groups didn't want their kids playing it or didn't want to play it for whatever because it wasn't what they did. I mean, I'm ecstatic that nowadays there are more racial groups playing D&D finally, or playing it in the open, which is great. But the only thing that was holding them back from D&D wasn't D&D, it was their own racial groups. And I've got stories out my ass about that shit. And that it's not D&D's fault, it's not representation's fault, it's simply that it wasn't done back then. What we're seeing now is the opening of different cultures to this game, or microcultures, or whatever you want to call it. People going, you know what? Actually, this game's. Remember when Harry Potter was like a devil book? It's the same shit. Now everyone loves Harry Potter, don't they? Dungeons and Dragons and Harry Potter were gateways to Satanism. Like everything changes in time. It's simply not that D&D is now available for everybody. No, now everybody is available and willing to play Dungeons and Dragons. They have it reversed in the worst possible way. D&D has always been open to everyone willing to play it. The book is there. You can have a whole African American group of players that, and nothing in that book would stop you. What stopped people were their own cultures and microcultures who wouldn't allow them to step outside that bubble and play D&D. And now everyone can. It's more accepted. It's not the fact that being geeky is now cool or being a nerd is now cool. It's the fact that now Dungeons and Dragons is accepted. And it's not slaying social anxiety. Go to your local game store. What do you see being played there? D&D, Pathfinder, 40K. Don't play 40K, it's bad for you. Star Wars Legion, X-Wing, Armada, Mech Warrior, Magic the Gathering. There's all the different kind of card games. There's just Dragon Ball card games now. I mean, D&D is not a safe haven in slaying social anxiety. Tabletop games and card games have always been slaying social anxiety for years. It's simply that now more people are getting into it. They're like, oh, you know what? I want to do this. This seems fun. You want to know why? It doesn't require you staring at a screen. You go there, you're touching things. You're seeing people, hearing them talk, engaging with people. The local game store games have always been there. The issue is that these people never came to play. That's the biggest issue. The games have always been open to everybody. It's only that now they're going there to play and meet these people who we have been there for decades. And simply now we're playing games that are now accepted. Like, just fucking give me a break, dude. D&D has always been there. Tabletop games have always been there. Card games have always been there. literally poker night was the social anxiety busting thing. You go out, you play a game of poker. It's just that this is with these games, you only lose nothing really. You still keep what you have unless you're paying. There are folks like me who will play for armies, but I haven't done that in a long time. But I don't get these articles. I really don't. I guess James is trying to make me angry, which, you know, you succeeded. But I don't get articles like these. D&D has always been here. It's been here for everybody. At no point did D&D say no girls allowed, no blacks allowed, no Asians allowed, whites only. D&D has been here for everybody all the time. The only thing that stopped you was you from playing this game. You and your cultures and your microcultures stopped you from playing D&D. And it's only now that all these actors and voice actors and bigwigs are playing D&D. Now it's accepted. Oh, now we can all play D&D without getting our head crushed in a fucking locker. Like, give me a fucking break. Being... nah. I could rant all day about this shit. But I'm going to end on this thing right here. My game that I made is open for everybody. D&D has always been open for everybody. 40K, Armada, Legion, Magic the Gathering, DBZ card game, it's always been open for everybody and always will be. There's nothing stopping any race or gender from playing a fucking tabletop game. The only thing stopping you is you and whatever your problems are. All right, the games have always been here. Hooray that I guess it's finally now accepted because all these quote-unquote cool people decided to come play the fucking game and now it's accepted. Give me a fucking break, dude. I just can't with these people. It's the same thing every fucking time, and it's just like they're like nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. You've finally come to the table to join us. That's all that's happened. It's fucking stupid, and I hate this shit. I hate it to death. And I guarantee James is going to send me another fucking article. You know what? You'll hear me fucking here. Guaranteed. This has been Guard Bro. And until I see you next time on this side of the veil, fucking... God, just go play fucking D&D. God damn. Ugh.